Hey guys, Will from Boosted Autos here. Today we're going to get cracking on installing our Demon Eye mod into the NB2 MX5 headlights. The method's going to be pretty much somewhat the same for most projector headlights. Actually, if anything, it's going to be easier for most, because as I found when I pulled these headlights apart, the projector system in this is a completely sealed unit, which means we're going to have to do a little bit of drilling. And I'll show you how all that works soon. But so on most projector headlights, you've actually got a bit of a gap there so that you can install the Demon Eye into. But anyway, look, I'll jump into the detail and show you how it all happens. The first thing that we need to do here is take off, on this particular light, take off the projector lens from the front. So you can see the lens here. And what it does is it just bolts in there. So it slots in there like that. And then you've got this cover that sits over the front. Now on this particular headlight, there's no easy way to remove this entire assembly and projector assembly out. It's all kind of one piece. And I thought, well, I don't want to risk breaking clips and that kind of thing on an older headlight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of modify it in place. So the way we're going to do it is we've got some little T5 LED globes, and I'll show you a close-up of that now. So in this video, I'll take you through all the details of how we can get this going as cheaply as possible. There's a couple of kits out there which you can buy, which are somewhat universal, but I found a way that I think is going to work really well for me. It cost me about $5 all up in parts to make this. So if you're interested, stick around, we'll get into it. All right, so while my soldering iron heats up, what I've got is these little T5 LED globes, and they've got a LED light which shines forwards, and then one on either side as well. And what I've found is that if you face it inside the light, so if you face it sort of halfway through and face on the top facing backwards towards the reflector, you get a nice even spread of light throughout the headlight without actually being able to see the source of the light in the lens. And I'll show you what that looks like once we're done doing some soldering. So what we're gonna have to do in the case of these headlights is drill a little hole in the metal to run the cable through. And then we're going to have to stick the LED to the top here somehow. We'll figure that out as well once we get into it. And what we're going to do is we're going to face it backwards. So it's going to kind of be in there like that, pointing backwards. And that gives us a really nice even spread of light throughout. So these LEDs are polarity sensitive. So you've got a positive side and a negative side. What we're going to do is we're just going to check and see which is which. So I've got my 12-volt power supply with some fly leads here. So I'm going to switch it on. And we just need to figure out which side is positive and which side is negative. So I'm just going to kind of tap them on there. There we go. So what I'm going to do is just solder the positive wire onto this side like that, and then flip it over and solder the negative wire onto the other side. So those legs are on there now. Switch off our soldering iron. Then we'll plug it back into our power source again. And we have light. So it's probably a good time to mention that there are kits that you can buy that give you multicolor and controllable LEDs. In my case, all I'm interested in is just having a slight red glow inside the headlights. I don't want to go for multicolor or anything like that. If you are interested in a multicolor setup, I'll link in the description below to a couple of kits that you can buy, which will do that for you. But like I said earlier on in the video, this is a really, really cheap alternative. These lights cost me about $3 each off eBay. And you know, just wire it up yourself and it's really simple. Right, so what I've done is I've slid a bit of heat shrink over the connections there, just leaving the LEDs at the end exposed. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just shrink that down. Hold on to it. Shrink it down. All good, and that'll keep it nice and protected. There you go. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick it to the inside of the light with some blue tack so I can show you exactly what it's going to look like once it's all wired in properly. So as I mentioned before, ultimately we're going to be wiring it in from the top and kind of bending it around, but for now, for simplicity's sake, what I'm going to do is just poke it through from the back. So that the wiring's not in the way. Now, as I mentioned before, what we want to do is we want to have it facing backwards inside the headlight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stick the blue tack here for now, like that. And I'm just going to stick it to the top of the inside of the headlight, roughly in position. Like so. We'll tuck the wiring out of the way. Alright, so you can see it's glowing away inside the headlight there. What we'll do is we'll put the lens on the front. Make sure that's not going to fall out. It's a little bit precarious there. I might just try and tilt that up a little bit more so it's a bit more safe. There we go, that'll sit there now. So you should be able to see that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn out the lights so we can see exactly what it's going to look like once we're finished. Switch off that light. So you can see there it's a really nice kind of mean looking glow without being too over the top. I think that looks pretty cool. So the next step is we need to figure out exactly how we're gonna actually wire it in place properly so that it's permanent. All right, so what we can see in this case is that the projector itself is a sealed unit and this whole assembly is all one piece. And I haven't found a way that I can easily and confidently snap this piece out to access the back of it. So what I think is gonna be easiest, because it's an older headlight, I'm worried that if I try to force it out, by undoing the screws and that sort of thing and then trying to work it off the plastic clips, and we'll end up breaking a clip, and I really don't want to do that. So I think the best way to get the thing into the position that I'm going to want is to drill a little hole in the top here. And it doesn't matter, because there's no gases or anything involved at all, it doesn't matter that that's not going to be airtight anymore, and we'll probably end up sealing it with something anyway. But we thought about running the cable through the front here, but there's a little gasket that sits in there like that, and then the lens sits in front of that. So there's a little, sorry, move that around. There's a little lip there as well. So there's really no easy way to get that cable through in front without compromising the lens angle. And obviously if you compromise the lens angle, then it's gonna throw your headlight beams all over the place. So what I think we're gonna do is drill in from the top, go down about there, and then that'll give us room to work inside and mount the LED where we want, and just run the cable back through the top. And then the cable can run through the back. We'll drill a little hole in the housing, run it out, seal it off so no moisture can get inside the headlight unit itself, because obviously that is the part that we need to be careful once the lens is on, that no moisture can get in so it doesn't fog up. We'll do all that and hopefully it'll all work. So we want to be really careful when we're doing this that we're drilling exactly the same spot on both sides, both headlights, because if we don't, then we're going to get an uneven look between the two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it top dead center, so right there. So what I'll do is I'll mark off exactly the middle. And luckily in this case, I've got a little thing there that I can use to line up with. So I'm going to put my head in front of the camera again probably, but line it up like that. To exactly the top. And just mark where we're going to drill with a Sharpie. So just there. We also need to make sure that we're drilling far enough back that we're not going to hit the little lip here as well. So go as far back as we can. And the hole only needs to be wide enough to fit the two wires through. So all we're going to be doing is fitting those two wires through. We'll start off with a smaller pilot hole and then we'll work our way up to the diameter that we need, one step at a time. We're getting all that metal dust out. We'll wait until the end to do that. So I've got a little pilot hole there now. What we're going to do is just work our way up to the diameter that we want. So that's it. Alright, so we put our drill aside, give the light a really good shake out to get all the metal particles out. Don't get any in your eyes. All right, so we now have a hole in the top of our light assembly that we can run our cables through. Obviously the hole is too small to fit that through that way, and that's intentional. What we're going to do is we're going to go from the other side and back through and feed it. So start off, thread it through like this, tilt it up so you can see. I'm just going to thread it through. Yep, fits perfectly. And just feed the wire all the way through. Now it's a really long wire simply because I wasn't sure how much length I was going to ultimately end up wanting, so I thought I'll make it as long as possible. That way I don't have to make any ugly joints later on. So feed it up through. Now I've deliberately chosen a wire that has a lot of protective shielding on it, really thick sheath. I'll obviously be putting a fuse on it as well, so that if there ever is a short, it won't blow anything up, it'll just blow the fuse. So, all right. So now we need to figure out a way to, and you can see the diameter of that hole is spot on, because now it's actually too thin to fit the heat shrink through, but that's okay. What we're gonna do now is figure out a way to mount the LED in exactly the spot we want it, and then we'll sort out, we might have to trim back that sheath a little bit just to make it the right length, and we'll go from there. So after stuffing around for quite some time, I think I've found the solution that I'm going to use. So you can see here I've got a little metal tab which I've wrapped around the heat shrunken area there, so it's completely shielded. It's not going to short out. What it is, if you can see there, is it's a little speaker grill tab like you would use to mount a speaker in an enclosure. So what I've done is I've put it on there, and it's got a little tapping thread there. So what I've done, I've put it around it and I've marked a hole on the top, and then we're just going to use a self-tapping screw to sort of go through there. It'll go through the metal, it'll bite in, and it'll hold it in place quite nicely. So it'll screw up and tighten, and that'll hold the LED in exactly the position we want. Now that's going to work perfectly because it's not involving any glue or anything like that, so heat cycling and getting up to high temperatures won't be an issue for it. It's not contacting any areas near any contacts on the circuit either, so it's not going to short out, and yeah, it should stand the test of time. So what we need to do now is just drill the hole in the top, and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to move the LED well and truly out of the way so there's no risk of damaging it. So I'll put it like that for now. But we just need to make sure we've got enough room that we can still get the screw in. So mark it there, and it should drop down quite nicely. So we'll drill our pilot hole, same as we did before. Alright, now I'm just going to check that everything's kind of lining up before I go any further. Not that I can really go back in time and change what I've just done, but may as well check and make sure that we haven't just made a huge mistake before we go any further and bore the hole out. So now if you haven't got something like this, what you could do is just drill a small hole on either side and put a bit of wire through it to hold it in place, and then twist it up. And that's what I was considering doing, but then when I found these, I thought that's going to be the perfect solution for me. Yeah, so that's going to work just fine. It's a little bit off center there, but I can wiggle the thing around and get it straight again once I've drilled the hole, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. So we just need to bore out the hole so it's big enough to fit this screw. There we go. Alright, so that hole is drilled now. Now what I've found is that the screw is a little bit too long and extends down into the visible area a little bit. So what I've got is a couple of little plastic spacers here, which I'm going to place the screw through first, and then we'll drop it in place, and that'll raise the screw up a little bit. If you've got a shorter screw than me, then you're not going to have this problem, you won't need to worry, but in my case, I don't have any other screws that I can use handy, so we'll just put these spacers on, hold the base there in position, and then just tighten it down. Now we don't want to do it up too tight, just enough that it holds in place. Like so. Make sure we're roughly in the position that we want as well, which we are. Shine the light in there and you can see nice and clean, it's holding the LED in the right position. angled slightly towards the inside, but that won't matter. As long as we drill the hole in exactly the same place when we do the other side, it's going to look even. So that's the important thing. So what we'll do is we'll drop the lens back in position, prop it up again so the lens doesn't fall out. Put the lens in, switch the LED on, turn out the lights. There we go. So just move the camera around a little bit so you get a better look at what it looks like. So as we move around, very cool. And I'll just switch the torch back on. So we've got a bit of light in here. So it's exactly what I wanted. It's not too bright. It's got that kind of demonic look to it, which is exactly what I wanted, given that it's a demon eye setup, and it'll go really well with the red and black theme that we're going to be going with this car. So now what we need to do is clean up the lens and put the projector back together, and we are done. Firstly, we want to blow out the projector and make sure we don't have any metal filings left in there. So just close your eyes and should be all good. I can't see anything in there at all, and I did give it a good shake out before. Now what we want to do is we want to clean off our projector lens. Now you want to make sure you use a nice clean new microfiber towel for this. Give it a squirt with some alcohol, give it a good wipe, get any marks off it. Squirt back, just using isopropyl alcohol. Now's a good time to drop the gasket back in as well, if you have one. So just having a good look here, making sure we haven't left any marks. Alright, I'm holding very carefully from the edges. Just place the lens back in. Slide the shield back over the front. So, and then we just need to put the screws back in. Now, one thing just to be careful, these screws on this particular headlight are very tough to get back into place. It's a very tight thread, so just be careful when you do it that you don't strip the screws. They go in easily to begin with, but then they get very tight very quickly, so just be very careful. Obviously being cautious not to cross thread. There we go. Alright, so you can see we've got plenty of clearance there between the cable and the shield. If you don't have as much clearance as me, what you can do is you can just trim a little bit of the shield away. As you can see there, but in my case, I've made sure it's far enough back. But yeah, you can just trim a little bit of the shield there if you need to. So now what we need to do is we need to find a way to run this cable through to the back side of the headlight. The ideal place looks like it's going to be this little valve area here. So what I'll do is I'll run the cable through the hole, which is just here on the side, and we'll drill a little hole in this cover as well, and that'll allow us to pass the cable through and still have a nice clean seal there. We'll just seal it up with some silicone once the cable's through. Right. And you can see there on the front that it's run through really nicely. There's no fouling, no problems. So we'll just drill a little hole in this, stick it over the back, seal it with some silicone once we're finished, and we'll be done. Simple. So we're just running the cable through the hole that we've made, making sure there's no crap left in there. So that is how I installed red demon eyes into my NB Series 2 headlights. As I said at the start of the video, the process is very much the same, if not easier, for most headlights that don't have an enclosed casing. You can buy RGBW lighting kits that allow you to change colors, do flashing patterns all remotely from inside the car. In my case, all I wanted was red, so I just went with a simple $3 each little T5 globe. So it's a T5 globe that you want to do if you want to use my method, and you can pick those up off eBay or AliExpress really cheaply, and even just in your local auto parts store if you don't mind paying a little bit more. But yeah, about $3 each those are. Everything else I used in this video was just stuff that I had laying around. You can substitute bits and pieces here and there depending on what you have, but basically that's the idea. So as far as wiring is concerned, we'll cover that in another video. At the moment I've just got it running off a power supply, but obviously we'll need to put a fuse in line with it as well in case we ever get a short. And we're gonna have a lot of wiring to do to transplant these headlights into my NB Series 1 MX-5. So stick around if you've enjoyed this video. There's a lot more to come on this conversion. Next up, I'm gonna be painting the silver surround and showing you how to do that. So yeah, we're gonna get these headlights looking awesome and then figure out installing them into the car, getting it all working. So if you've liked the video, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you're aware when I release a new video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.